Just seeking to earnestly know the truth by living a virtuous life is just so key. As you start to live a virtuous life, you're able to more clearly discern what is actually true. People who don't live a virtuous life, they have a very difficult time perceiving truth or understanding truth or recognizing it when it's even plainly put right in front of them. And so by living by virtue, you'll be able to discover more truth. Welcome to the Phillip Mason Show, where we free our minds from ignorance, anxiety, and the overwhelm with too much information, transforming ourselves into people of virtue, intelligence, and wisdom. Welcome, my friend. I am so glad you're here. So for today's episode, we're going to talk about developing wisdom. So the first 10 steps to developing wisdom. So as we go through this list, there's 10 of them. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it, and then I'm going to go ahead and just relate just a few people that connect well with these first steps to wisdom. The very first one is to humble yourself. Now, this isn't a very popular topic. And when we talk about humbling yourself, it sounds like almost a punishment, right? But really quite the opposite happens. It really kind of opens you up, frees you up, and blesses you with a lot of power to get things done. But one of the things that's important about developing humility is just this idea of acknowledging that you know nothing or that you know very little. And this really does free up your mind and your heart and gives you a lot of power to seek intelligence, to seek wisdom. Recognizing that God alone has all intelligence and all wisdom really sets you up for success and prepares you for receiving not only help from others, but help from upstairs, from God Himself. So remember the model of Moses. Moses was known to be the most meek of all men. He exhibited great meekness. He was very able to absorb and take in everything that he needed to learn and to know. And because of his meekness, he was able to absorb a lot and retain a lot and learn new things that otherwise he might have been closed off to. Moses had a fall from Egypt, and that was purposely put into place by himself. And he left the riches and the fame of Egypt behind, and he started a new life as a shepherd, and ultimately leading the people of God to a new destiny. Also remember Socrates. Socrates would admit openly, he says, I know very little, but I'm going to continue to inquire. I'm going to continue to learn. And he literally devoted his whole life to learning and to questioning things and learning about things. And he was willing to give up a lot of creature comforts and a lot of success and a lot of fame. Very capable individual, but he devoted his whole self to his philosophy and learning more. Okay, so that's number one, humble yourself. So step number two, and these are in sequential order. They're in an order for a reason. They've been prioritized. The second one is a willingness to learning by both reason and faith. So we're dual beings. We have an intellect, we have a brain, we can reason and we can think through things. And we're also spiritual beings. We operate by faith. We have hearts. We feel things. We recognize things that are divine, that are good, that are true and beautiful. And we feel them and recognize them through our spirits. So that power of our spirit, knowing and understanding things, coupled with the reasoning of our mind, is very powerful. And you need both of those together. And activating both your heart and mind together, operating in this willingness and easiness to explore and to learn, creates a lot of really powerful synergies in your learning quest. The analogy that I like to use here is with draft horses. If you get a pair of Belgium draft horses or Clydesdales together, you may get one horse that by itself, and I'm just throwing these numbers out, the numbers can vary, but if you have one draft horse that can pull 8,000 pounds, you might think that, if you had two draft horses together, you may be able to double that number, right? You might get 16,000 pounds. A max pull of 16,000 pounds. And that sounds like a lot, right? And it is. But there's an amazing synergy that happens. You get two draft horses and they're pulling equally together. They're stepping together. They're working as a team. They can actually pull way more than 16,000 pounds. They can pull, in some cases, 20,000, 24,000, maybe even as much as 27,000 pounds, depending on the horses and how well they're working together. And so you have this synergy that takes place where these two horses are able to pull way more weight than what they would otherwise, because they are working together as a team. And it's a remarkable phenomenon. As far as individuals who kind of exemplify a willingness to learn, remember Solomon. Solomon from the Old Testament, Johannes Kepler, and Helen Keller are really good examples. And surely you can think of others, I'm sure, who have willingness to learn. And perhaps you have family members or others that you know of that have just exemplified a willingness to learn, an easiness to take on new information, kind of just being that human sponge and absorbing all the information they possibly can. It's a great attribute to have. And these I'm just giving a few examples of people who exemplify these traits. But if you want to, feel free to pop into the comments and let me know of other people from history or maybe even from your own family who you feel exemplify some of these first steps to wisdom. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, so feel free to do that. Okay, so that's number 2, willingness to learn. We're going to jump on here to number 3, which is be believing. So believe that all things are possible. There's something wonderful that happens. It's very transformational in a person's mind when it opens up and they realize that anything is possible. And we live in a world where that's certainly the case. I think one of the great crowning examples that we have is Jesus Christ, who, as a savior and creator of the earth, invited all to believe in him and showed miracles to those who believed in him. Another great example to remember is Joan of Arc, who, as a young teenager, she led the armies of the French against the English in the Hundred Years' War, and she did so with tremendous courage, and she just believed that she could do it. She felt inspired from heaven that she could do that, and she affected much good for her people. Another that I really love from history is George Washington. George Washington, was appointed to be the general of the Revolutionary Army here in America during the Revolutionary War. The odds were so stacked against him, and definitely not in his favor against the mighty British Empire. But yet he persevered over a very long 7-8 year period, and he made it through that Revolutionary War and eventually won. It was a very, very tough situation. We kept believing and kept pushing forward. Okay, so that's number 3, be believing. So we're going to move on to number 4, which is pivot in faith. So when you discover new truths, be willing to change your actions, be willing to change your thoughts, be willing to change the way you view the world around you. So that willingness to pivot in faith and to take action on things and say, I sense and I know, I believe that this is true. Let me act on it, experiment, test it, and verify for yourself that it's true. And that's really the power of faith and being willing to pivot and to change your viewpoint when you receive new evidence, and hoping that you'll be able to continue to see the fruit that comes from discovering and living by that new truth that comes into your life. Very, very powerful concept. So remember, Paul of Tarsus, Alma the Younger from the Book of Mormon, for those that read the Book of Mormon, St. Augustine of Hippo, and Lao Tzu and John Newton are all great examples from history of people who are willing to pivot in faith and be able to move towards greater light and understanding and to change their behaviors because they've learned new insights and they've gained new light. So that's a very, very powerful one. Number 4, pivot in faith. Okay, so let's jump forward here and go to number 5. So number 5 is deny yourself. And once again, like number 1, humble yourself. This doesn't sound too exciting, right? And I don't know why, but I think of Haagen-Dazs ice cream and someone just enjoying their ice cream probably a little bit too much and then deciding not to eat so much ice cream. But I don't know why, but that pops into my mind, but it does. There's oftentimes many things in our lives that keep us from being our best selves. And being able to deny ourselves of those things actually just takes a burden off of us, and it frees us up, helps us to be our best selves so that we can perform at a very high level. So deny yourself pleasures, vanity, pride, lust, sin, materialism, crime that would destroy your virtue, dull your senses, and bring regret and misery upon you. Some pretty strong language there that I'm using, but just remember that. A lot of times there's a lot of pleasures that sometimes we indulge in that really prevent us from being the best that we can be and developing true virtuous humility and wisdom. So remember, there's a few key characters here that I think are really great. So remember Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Robert E. Lee, all very exemplary people, very difficult situations that they were in, incredibly difficult situations that they were in, but yet they continue to deny themselves and focus on the virtue in their life, focus on helping and serving others, what they could do to improve the world around them. Just absolutely inspiring examples. So that's number 5, deny yourself. All right, so moving on to number 6. Number 6 is service to lift others, providing service to others. Now, when we give service, sometimes we do it out of obligation or we're told it's a good thing to do. But until we have the right intent and the right motive, and we go out and we perform service for others with a true desire to really help them and to lift them, we're really kind of missing out. And when it all kind of clicks with us, there's a certain joy and a certain peace that comes into our lives when we've provided service for others. I'll just tell you a quick story here. My father, who I admire very much, very good man. He was single for quite a while before he got married to my mother. In fact, he was about 28 when he got married. And so he went through college and he was in the Air Force for a while. And there were some times where he just felt unhappy. So this troubled him a lot. And one time he met with his grandfather and he had this conversation with him. And he was kind of just explaining to his grandfather some of the struggles that he was having and that he was oftentimes unhappy. And his grandfather just looked at him. He said, "You know, Warren, until you forget yourself and you start spending time serving others, you're going to be unhappy. One of the things that's keeping you from being happy is you're not serving others." And so my father really took that to heart. And anytime he could take the opportunity to serve others, he did it. In fact, I remember him one time, he always had a pickup truck being a farmer. And he said, "You know, son, when you grow up, if you have a pickup truck, just know that people are going to ask you to help them to move." And so he says that's a common thing. So he oftentimes helped people move with his pickup truck, pulling a trailer and helping them get from place to place. I remember another time there was a neighbor who had a lot of rock that he was putting into his landscape. And my dad just out of the blue went over there, grabbed his shovel and said, "Hey, can I help you?" And he just jumped up there and started shoveling rock and gravel. And the neighbor was so surprised, so shocked that his neighbor would come over and sweat with him and move all this rock around on a warm day. But my dad found a lot of joy in serving others and helping others, and it just made a huge difference in his happiness. And that's something, fortunately, that he passed on to me that I really appreciate. Okay, service to others. So, a few individuals to think of when we talk about service to lift others. And these are all people who they really work to lighten the burdens of others so that they could have joy, so that they could be happy like they were happy, or at least as they desired to be happy. Sometimes happiness can feel like it's far away, but as we serve and we love others, incredible things happen and our hearts change. So, some that come to my mind that we could remember are St. Vincent de Paul was known for his amazing service. Florence Nightingale performed amazing service in her time. Mother Teresa, Clara Barton, William Wilberforce, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King Jr. are just some of the names that come to my mind. Of course, there's many more, but those are all very powerful examples. Okay, so number 6 was to lift others. And now we're going to move on to number 7. So number 7 is live by virtue and truth. Live by virtue and truth. So, studying and implementing virtues into your daily living, it will be very critical to your growth and development as you cultivate wisdom in your life. So, some of the virtues that you would want to cultivate in your life are prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, patience, perseverance, courage, faith, hope, charity or love, gratitude, honesty, and integrity. And of course, there's many other great virtues out there. But those are some of the core ones, some of the very fundamental ones. Just seeking to earnestly know the truth by living a virtuous life is just so key, so important. There's a remarkable truth here that as you start to live a virtuous life, you're able to more clearly discern what is actually true. People who don't live a virtuous life, they have a very difficult time perceiving truth or understanding truth or recognizing it when it's even plainly put right in front of them. And so by living by virtue, you'll be able to discover more truth. So there's kind of a synergistic relationship here once more, just like there is where when we learn with both our heart and our mind, similar pattern here. There's some synergies that take place and the results are exponential. So with these virtues or these truths, as we live by them, and there's some key figures that we can remember that did a really great job in their lives of living by virtue and discovering new truths. So a few that come to my mind are Martin Luther, St. Francis of Assisi, Voltaire, Montesquieu, Blackstone, Nephi, Locke, and Confucius. Those are some that really stand out to me. And you may think of others that exemplify this. And I'd love to hear what other people from history or maybe even from your own life that you think exemplify living by virtue and truth. And you can just drop that in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So that's number 7, live by virtue and truth. Okay, so we're moving on to number 8. We're getting getting along here in our list very nicely. So number 8 is be inquisitive. So this for some of you, this might seem like a given, right? And you may be wondering why it doesn't come earlier in the list, right? And why isn't this number 1 or number 2, right? We're oftentimes very familiar with the Socratic method or with Socrates, how he questioned everything. And by questioning things, he was able to gain new ideas, new thoughts, new insights into the truths around him. And of course, Socrates is a great example of being inquisitive and asking questions. But the reason why I put being inquisitive here as number 8 is as you begin to live your life, those doing some of these previous steps, and then particularly living a life in virtue and truth, um, being able to reach out and to look beyond yourself and to observe the world and then to ask a question at that point, you're more prone to be able to ask an enlightened question, meaning you might get some divine help from God's from God's revelations, God's insights and blessings upon your spirit to be able to help you know the right question to ask. And then He would help shower additional light and truth upon you. There's a lot of power that comes from living by faith, pivoting in faith, to be able to understand new truth when you ask a question and to be able to recognize that truth and to start living by it. So learning to question the things around you, not in a negative manner, but in a faithful manner, believing all things and seeking to be able to understand all things around you as best as you possibly can. One of the analogies that I like to use is if you like doing puzzles, as you put a puzzle together, that picture starts to form. And particularly if you have a puzzle that you don't know, you don't have a picture of it, right? And you put it together, that picture comes into view and you slowly create it piece by piece. And that's really how living in this mortal fallen world that we live in, that's how we learn and grow and develop is by piece, we're putting different experiences, different truths, different learnings that we've gained from our study into this puzzle. And as it takes shape, we get more and more clarity, more and more light as to what the grand picture of truth is. And truth can truly be circumcised into one great whole. It's one complete whole, and all truths complement each other. But in this world that we live in, things can seem very muddy at times, and truths can be seen disconnected or unrelated to each other. But one of the things that you'll do is you ask the right questions, you'll be able to understand how all those pieces of lock in and work together, and you'll start being able to see this bigger picture. And once you do that, it's absolutely a beautiful thing. Your eyes and your mind and your senses just become more alert and more attuned to the great truths that are around you, and how to live by wisdom becomes more and more of a practical thing for you. Now, I'll just also point out here with being inquisitive, I think it's really helpful to keep a journal, to write down your questions and to ponder them for days, not necessarily seeking for an immediate answer, but that those truths can come to you over time. You write down that question, and that because you've written it down, when something does come to you, you can go and write an answer down. And you can continue to add answers to that question as you move through time and as you continue to ponder that question. Okay, so let's move on here. That's number 8, be inquisitive. And now we're moving on to number 9, develop your talents. So this one's huge. I personally know from experience that each person has specific gifts and talents that are naturally endowed upon them by their creator. And I believe that with all my heart. I've never met a person that didn't have some degree of talent or skill or ability that was in some way certainly superior to mine and certainly was a gift from God. And I'm so convinced of that. I've seen it over and over again in my life, and it is a very important part of developing wisdom. Some of the happiest, most fulfilled people in life are those who have developed their gifts and talents that they are naturally endowed with. You naturally possess these gifts, and it's really our responsibility to cultivate them and become better and better at them. Now, the purpose that God has given us these gifts or these talents isn't just to use them on ourselves, but to serve others, to lift others, to inspire others, and to build others up. Our gifts and talents come in all different sizes and shapes and all different types of functions. So I'll just share one brief experience here. So we were over, my family and I were visiting another family that we attend church with. And we were just visiting with this family, getting to know them. We had moved into the area recently. And as we were getting to know some of the children, there was one particular child that was not involved in a lot of extracurricular activities or sports like the other kids were. It was kind of interesting. The mother kind of came to the defense of this um, of this child. So this child, when I asked her what kind of things she liked to do, she said, "Well, I like to be with my friends and hang out with my friends." And the mother kind of interjected. She kind of stepped in and she said, "Yes, that's her gift or her talent. She's really good at being a friend and helping others." And I thought, man, that is so beautiful. She's not in, you know, dance or sing or sports or whatever club that most kids may be a part of, and you may think, man, she's not doing anything. But she had this gift or this talent of being a friend and lifting others where she stood. And it was just kind of a really touching moment. I was grateful that mother stepped in, and I certainly wasn't gonna judge her for sure, but I appreciate that mother's interjection there. Our talents can be really simple. It could be as simple as listening to someone. We maybe have a talent or a gift for listening to others. And my wife has that talent. She's just really great at listening to others and letting them express themselves and just letting them know that they're heard. Like, sometimes we just need to know that we're heard and that people are listening to us. That's important to us. And so our gifts can be relatively simple in that regard, but very important to our humanity and to our growth as humans, as individuals. Think about your talents, write them down. What is it that you're good at? What comes to you very naturally? What is it that you want to develop about yourself? And those gifts can look like all sorts of different things. It's not just gifts in the arts or talents in the arts or talents in sports, although certainly you may have those for sure. So one of the things about developing talents is that you're really helping others find true joy. And we've been given talents to lift others, to inspire others, and be willing to share your gifts and talents with others. Sometimes we just kind of hole up and we we hide ourselves and we don't let others see our light. Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is because I just feel like, wisdom is such an important thing. Receiving an education is such an important thing. And I think in America, we're not doing it like it used to be done. Americans used to be very highly educated and very profound people. And they created a very profound nation, the greatest nation that we've ever seen in the history of this planet. And when I think about the last 300 years here in America and the progress and growth and development that we've made here in this country, overcoming so many challenges and problems and issues and just prospering like no other nation has had before, I can't help but think like, what kind of education did those American founders, what kind of education did they receive that enabled them to be able to create a country like this? It must have been a phenomenal education. And guess what? It was, and it is. And we can receive that same education ourselves today if we're willing to receive it. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. And I hope what I have to offer will be of strength and of blessing to you. I would love to know what what you think your talents or your gifts are too. And you're welcome to put those in the comments. And I'd love to know what those are. So just remember, true joy is found when gifts are shared, bringing light to both giver and receiver. Some of the people that I think exemplify this really well as far as developing talents, one that always touches my heart is George Washington Carver. Just a phenomenal educator, phenomenal scientist, phenomenal disciple of Jesus Christ. He was great at reading and studying and teaching, and just had a profound impact on people, and just had a great connection to nature and understanding the laws of nature. Just incredible individual. And really all these people I've mentioned are incredible in their own right. We could do a whole podcast on each one of them. Another one that is good to remember is Marie Curie, Benjamin Franklin, Michelangelo, Mozart, and Leonardo da Vinci, all excellent examples of people that just went above and beyond in developing their gifts and talents and using it to help and inspire mankind in just absolutely phenomenal ways. So that's number 9, develop your talents. And now we are to our very last one. And number 10, this might surprise a few of you. For some of you, it won't be a surprise at all. But number 10 is build a happy family. We are social creatures and we are designed to be in families. That's the way nature and nature's God intended us to be. He intended us to be in family units. And as social creatures, we're happiest when we have people that we love and we're fully committed to, bound together by marriage and raising children and enjoying grandchildren and having all the joys that come from family life are so important. So I think true wisdom comes from desiring to be married, desiring to raise children, desiring to have a family unit and to build up a happy family. I just believe that there's no substitute for that. It's just so foundational. So my line here for you is to be fully committed to creating a happy, successful marriage, a happy, successful family, raising happy and successful children. And you'll be blessed for your whole life. Once you start a family, it's just a gift that keeps on giving. Your children, if you raise them right, teach them right, love them right, they will do the same to you when you're old, and they'll take care of you and they'll love you, and their children and their grandchildren will bring you a lot of joy. I love the story of Jacob and Rachel in the Old Testament, their great faith in raising a family. And also, I love from American history, John and Abigail Adams, one of the great first families of America in the United States of America. Just tremendous examples. All right, so we did it. We got through it. Those are the 10 first steps to wisdom. And I hope these are really helpful. Don't be overwhelmed by the number 10. I know that may seem like a lot of numbers to you, but it's really not that. It's really not that much. 10's a great number. And all these attributes or these traits, these principles that we've talked about today, they complement each other. They work together. They are in a specific order for a specific reason. And my challenge for you today is to start developing yourselves in these ways. Start with the very first one. Find out, how can I develop humility in my own life? What are some of the things I need to do to change my life so that I am more humble, I'm more open to teaching and instruction and correction so that I can grow and develop and become better? My friend, it has been a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for letting me share these first steps to wisdom. And I know that you'll be blessed for implementing these steps in your life. And I know some of you are thinking, man, this sounds like some work. Yes, it is work, no doubt. But nothing good in this life comes without some work. And wisdom can be hard won sometimes, but that work pays off, and that wisdom can flow to you when you do these 10 steps. And that's my conviction, and I share it with you. So again, thank you, my friend, for joining me today, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thank you.